It's extremely hard to build a business with an exit in mind, and the best way to get an exit, if that's what you want, is to not think about it and to just go fast, build hard. And the most important thing was, so the people that bought us, we actually had been working with for over a year before they bought us. As a general rule, the people who buy you are the people that know you, like you, and have worked with you. Even your rivals, you just be good and nice to everybody, and that's where that stuff is most likely to happen. The kind of out of the blue, Google suddenly buys you out of the blue. It just doesn't really happen. Like, the best thing is to always just grow as fast as possible and build relationships with people who might potentially do it and be nice, and then see what happens. But businesses are bought and not sold.
Coley's content creation and management platform helps the world's top D2C brands enter new channels, reach more customers, and increase conversions through smarter creative that's authentic, made for you, and meets your needs cost effectively. Whether you're a brand marketer trying to grow on TikTok with authentic videos, or a performance marketer looking to get more images to test in your ads to improve your return on ad spend, Coley has the creators and team to shatter your marketing goals. Visit coley.com/DTC. That's COHLEY.com/DTC to request a complimentary consultation and get on the fast track to better content. Hello and welcome to All Killer, No Filler. I'm Eric Dick, and today I am super lucky to be joined by Henry Zoete, as well as Pilothouse principal and CRO, Chief Wrapping Officer these days, Kyle Hitchcox. Welcome to All Killer, No Filler. A little side note, we got to share the rap that Kyle did for the company at our last company meeting. It blew everyone away, but that's a little side note. Look After My Bills is one of Pilothouse's longest standing clients. We've had one of the most fruitful relationships with you, Henry, I think of anyone that we've worked with. Can you just start by telling us the story of Look After My Bills? Why did you create this product?
It was a long and convoluted story because Look After My Bills was actually a pivot from a startup that was doing something else. So we originally had launched, me and my co-founder Will, who's an old friend from university. We launched an organisation called The Big Deal, which was collective bargaining for consumers. Can you bring tens of thousands of people together, get them cheaper deals than you could get on their own? We were focused on gas and electricity bills. And that kind of went okay. It did all right, and we did the biggest mass switch to green energy, and we negotiated great deals. But the truth was it never felt like a rocket ship. And we ended up pivoting it after 4 years, where we were speaking to our users a lot, and they were like, "We trust you. You're negotiating these deals on our behalf. Why can't you just do this automatically for us every year? You've done it. We keep having to do it. It's very annoying. Why don't you just do it for us?" And that was the kind of light bulb moment. And we built Look After My Bills, a totally automated system. You sign up once, and we just keep switching you every year to save you money on your gas and electricity. So that was where it kind of came from. And it was the very beginning of it all was the idea that this industry, normal people were getting ripped off by energy companies that were charging too much money, and we wanted to try and kind of right that wrong. And we ended up saving people serious amounts of cash over kind of hundreds of millions over the period of the company, which was great.
That's amazing. Is this a UK? This is UK specific, right? Because this wild fluctuation of energy costs over years that you've kind of regulated for people, is that something that is that a global issue, or is that something that's specific to the UK?
So we were a UK based company. I mean, we did do Y Combinator, so we kind of had some exposure in the US, but in the North America, it's quite state by state. I think that's the case in Canada as well. I don't know the ins and outs of it. So we were just pure focused on the UK for that reason. And it's it's a historical thing where there's a much bigger, more competitive market, or there was in the energy market in the UK, with lots of companies vying for your custom, but the vast majority of them were monopoly providers who just inherited a load of customers, and they just continually overcharged them over a long period of time. And we were like, well, that's not good. That's where it came from.
Very interesting. So, most of the people we talk to on the podcast have physical products that they're selling. So you create this service that solves a problem for people, saves them money on a annual basis. What were your first steps to bring this to market? I guess you'd already done it with the previous product. Did you jump right onto ads right away, or did you have it go through word of mouth? How did it start at the beginning?
Yeah, so actually, well, we were lucky because we had a kind of database of customers from the big deal who were interested, though they were interested in a different proposition, but we went to those guys first and all via email, and we're just like, hey, we've launched this new thing, it looks like this, are you interested in doing it? That gave us a good little, spike at the start. At the time, we really didn't have very much money. We hadn't raised huge amounts of cash, and so we were very focused on affiliate marketing to begin with. So our model was that we would get paid by the energy companies once we switched the customer to them, and so with affiliate stuff we didn't obviously have to pay up front for that, so we would give them a part of the affiliate, the commission down the line, so it didn't cost us anything up front. So we tried to max out emails, max out affiliate marketing first before we then powered into the kind of upfront ad spends in the kind of Google and Facebook territory. But the really big moment for us was we actually ended up doing Dragon's Den in the UK, which I think I'm right in thinking that Shark Tank in America, but you guys it's called Dragon's Den, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beaver's Lair in Canada.
And it was a weird one because we're a tech company and tech companies don't really go on those shows. But my view was that we were a kind of consumer-facing business, and we just needed to spread the word about, because we were just taking a totally different approach to what we were doing, and it really worked for us. We got very lucky. We got the best deal in the history of the show in the UK on that program, and then when that aired, that obviously increased, led to a lot of people hitting the site, but also it actually kind of reduced our cost per acquisition in lots of other channels. That meant we were able to kind of get things to work that we weren't able to get to work before, and scale some stuff up, and that was kind of the key for us.
Just allowing you to crystallize that story, and then when you get that story out there, have it understood by everyone, so that every customer that you got from that probably also had a better chance at becoming an advocate, to share the service with other people in their lives. Like, if you're generally providing just value to people, I bet there's a huge viral component to people sharing this with their friends and family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people were talking about it, and it was great. I was out one night in a bowling alley with my co-founder, and a random bloke came over and said, "Weren't you on Dragon's Den?" And I was like, yeah." It was totally ludicrous. So there was that kind of awareness as well, which was great. But we also just and we had the refer a friend scheme and all of that kind of jazz. But I think in terms of the brutal honesty about we were quite full on in terms of the performance focus of the marketing, and being very kind of efficient and led on the whole thing, and that was what we were able to scale up, and that's what really kind of spread the word for us, and also you're right, it was. Because it was people were saving money, they were kind of pleased about it, and I'm not going to pretend to you that people were screaming and shouting about us, because saving money on your electricity bills, it's not like buying a cool product that you tell all your friends, say check out my new thing, my new cool thing I bought. It wasn't a physical thing, so you sharing it was harder. So we had to take kind of specific routes to make that work.
So your ruthless focus on performance marketing was probably a pretty good fit for Pilothouse. I know, having come from an affiliate marketing company way back when with Kyle, this idea of being able to be, really, really ruthless about your performance marketing to the point where you're optimizing every aspect of your funnel. And I know just from Nate and from the sort of legendary stories about working on this account over the years, that there was just a lot of creative energy that went into helping people look after their bills from the Pilothouse side. What did you think early days with this client, Kyle, and what were some of the early impacts that you think Pilothouse brought to the table?
Specifically early days, Henry and team, they had things organized in a way that made sense for growth coming in. And so they had a lot of the stuff that Henry was talking about, the previous infrastructure, the tracking tools. They were very data focused, and so there was an early alignment around that. And then I think from that, just the mindset was similar, where we're gonna do this until it breaks, no matter what. And I think that, after a couple calls, there was like an instant like, oh, this is a cool relationship. Going back to our values, I think, we actually, like Henry and a couple other early accounts, we really built our company values around, those early relationships. Um, it all just kind of made sense. They were a little nutty and we were a little nutty, and together we made some magic happen over a bunch of years. Really exciting campaigns and challenges and tribulations and sneaking into Facebook offices to get shit done and so on. But we did it. So.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's spot on. I mean, I think one of the things that really helped us was like our team, like our existing team, like really did understand this themselves as well, so that we weren't. I sometimes worry that there can be a little bit of disalignment when a team isn't necessarily very performance marketing focused, and they might be more brand focused, and then like like you can have a disalignment where uh, we were just keen to do anything that was going to bring us customers at the right cost per acquisition, and that meant we were all in exactly the same place on it, and that meant that I did ridiculously stupid selfie videos that like that actually worked extremely well. We all worked on no idea was a bad idea. Everybody was being very creative together. I think one of the really fantastic things about working with Pilothouse was that there was just like total openness about ideas and throwing things around, and we were just willing to test anything, and we were moving fast, and it was always the way that the things that I thought weren't going to work were the things that would work, and so therefore it was always let's just test, let's just go for it. And because you guys were West Coast Canada and we were London, there was a very nice timing element to it all, because we'd wake up and we would like work on the accounts in the morning. You guys would be in bed. It'd get to like 3 o'clock our time. You guys would wake up. We would then connect, and then you were able to work on the accounts in the evening and over. So we basically had 24-hour management of the account, which given we were spending a lot of money. I think at one point we were doing 50 grand a day pounds on Facebook when we were really flying, and then you had Snap on top of that and everything else, and YouTube.
Yeah, we had 6 or 7 ad accounts going. James over and Facebook in the UK was, helping us navigate all that. We were coming up with all types of crazy stuff. Like I remember we tied into APIs with drop shipping products to incentivize, clients to sign up. Yeah, so much. It was really exciting. It was really exciting.
Very. How many people? What's the penetration in the UK? Like, how many people are having their bills looked after by this company at this point?
So I think when the guys got really involved, I think we were on about 150,000 at that stage, and then we kind of like it motored up after that. And grew super fast. I actually, the company that bought us was a publicly listed company, so I can't actually reveal the number of customers that is on Look After My Bills now. But put it this way, it's a lot, and it's a hell of a lot more than 150,000. And there are 25 million households in the UK, so we were getting to, into like kind of big territories, and compared to some of our rivals, I mean, there was no other auto switching service that was even close to us. There was like price comparison websites, which were quite big and more traditional, but no one was kind of doing what we were doing.
And spending what you guys are spending too, and the creative input that was going, like to reach those scales, consistently spend at those scales, the number of angles, the number of creatives. I just remember being close with some of the buyers at the time and seeing the stuff that was going into it. And what an incredible opportunity to really push the limits of what can be done with an account. I imagine you use the Dragon's Den. I know you use the Dragon's Den in ad creative as really effectively. And I think that it was one of the things that we talked about early on in this podcast is like, if you've got those experiences, not only are they going to be great for your business organically, but they can be spun into so many effective ad pieces. And that's something we talked about ad nauseum in the first year of this business.
One of the first things now from that experience is always founder story as one of the angles first. It always seems to hit if you get the copy right and you get that tone and it resonates with the audience within brand. To Henry's point earlier, it scaled. That's great.
Yeah. Well, there was a particularly good moment when not a big reveal, but there was Kyle and the team came over to London at a very, very crucial moment in it was just before it was like January 2020, I think, just before it all went a bit horrible in the world, and the team came over it was a crucial moment because I think we got done by Facebook. Like there was some sort of account error. Like I think what had happened was the credit cards got maxed out on our main account, and then Facebook kept trying to take money. We're getting into too much detail here, but we kept trying to take money off the account, and then it started penalising the account, and our CPMs went up like this. And so suddenly we were just like in this kind of like, oh my god, we've got to keep, we had to spin up loads more accounts. We had to do a whole bunch of things.
And you were in the middle of your back end negotiations at that point too, I believe.
Exactly. So it was like a kind of like absolute vital moment, and it was probably one of the most hectic. It was like this kind of week where the guys were just like, and they just like sitting in random corners of our office, and everybody being like, "What's going on?" As we're all like freaking out, and then
it's gonna be fine, guys. I got this. We got this. It's gonna be fine.
Just airdrop a few Canadians in there, just like World War II. Just like
exactly. Send for the backup.
That's right.
But we got through it and had a cracking night out at the end of it as well, if I remember rightly. I can't remember that much of it, but it was a good night.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask back, so you've recently exited from Look After My Bills, so big congrats on that. And I wanted to ask, when you're building a business that is, based on service switching, you've got this niche, you're going super aggressive at it. Did you know, how early into the experience did you have an exit in mind? Were you building it with an exit in mind?
No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, I think one of the things that was a tricky one for us in the sense that, we did Y Combinator at the start of 2018. We raised a bit of money out there. Like the idea was, you do that, you're making $1 billion business, and that's what we were telling everybody. And so therefore, the big goal was there. I think we got in a funny place because we hadn't raised huge amounts of money, and then a good offer came in to buy us, and it made sense at the time. And we were in that place where either we had to go do a big Series A and raise loads more money and do another kind of 5 to 10 years to kind of really go for it, or we were able to get out at that stage. And it was a very, very, very tough choice, but that's kind of where we got to. But my honest view is that I think it's extremely hard to build a business with an exit in mind, and I like the best way to get an exit, if that's what you want, is to not think about it and to just go fast, build hard, and build. The most important thing was, so the people that bought us, we actually had been working with for over a year before they bought us. And when I talk to my friends who've also exited from businesses, there's a general rule: the people who buy you are the people that know you, like you, and have worked with you, and that's the best way to just even your rivals, you just be good and nice to everybody, and that's where that stuff is most likely to happen. The kind of out of the blue, Google suddenly buys you out of the blue. It just doesn't really happen like that. Obviously it can happen, but it's just a bit rarer. And the best thing is to always just grow as fast as possible and build relationships with people who might potentially do it and be nice, and then see what happens. But businesses are bought, they're not sold. So it's hard to sell a business.
When you started working with this partner, how did you were you oh, there's someone who could also buy us? Was that sort of like on your mind? Like, I know you're not trying to plan it or think about it ahead of time, but like you're investing in that relationship early on. Did you know early on that they might be a suitor?
No, not really. Actually, in fact, they built a copycat version of us. I mean, they wouldn't call it a copycat version, so I've already been things, but they built their own version of us, and they launched it, and they had kind of talked to us before, but they were like, "Oh, we're building this, see you later. We'll kind of crush you into the ground," and that didn't happen. And they ended up buying us. But we partnered with them because they were the right partner at the time, and we did a good commercial deal with them, and that's what made sense. It certainly wasn't a kind of like, "Ooh, maybe they'll buy us." It was kind of like, what do we need to do to keep the business going, grow as fast as possible, and get with the right partner, and that's what made sense.
It's time to let your customers enjoy the products they love without the friction of reordering. That's why the world's most innovative brands like Peet's Coffee and Il Maquillage rely on Order Groove's subscriptions to build long-lasting customer relationships and deliver recurring revenue. Order Groove integrates with all e-commerce platforms, making the experience easy to manage and seamless for shoppers. From enrollment incentives to churn-fighting AI, Order Groove gives your business the tools it needs to be the next big subscription success story. Visit ordergroove.com/DTC to receive 2 months off your first contract. And growing as fast as possible, I'm sure was a big part of the appeal. The fact that you had the model dialed, the fact that you had the acquisition model dialed through Pilothouse, and that you had your gas pedal fully down, I'm sure just made you guys a pretty irresistible opportunity for these guys.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I guess that's why they do go through. I mean, I think like we also got into a place where our cost per acquisition was in a reasonable place. We were making money straight away, and it made sense to kind of like really go for it, and I think like we as Carl said earlier, like we kind of prioritized some of the basics to make sure they worked, so that when we did really spend, like I'm always saying to people, look, don't go and spend loads of money on ad spend until you've sorted out your market, your email marketing, so that if someone hits the site and gives you an email. We knew that if someone hit the site, gave us their email address, then within a week, through our automated emails that are being tested for God knows how many times, that 15 to 20% of them would end up becoming customers, and that just meant that we could spend more money like to bring people in, because then the system was gave us a wriggle room of more than 20%.
That's actually really, really important part there, Henry, is how dependent we were on your full funnel to actually bring that initial customer in, where we could still spend confidently at 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds or whatever. If you All killer, no filler, hello. Make sure your email flows and SMS sequences are dialed, that you have a good team doing that, because that really did carry us forward. Especially now through iOS, without all the data attribution, you really need that dialed.
100%.
Segue.
And I think it was like it meant that Carl, tell me if I get this wrong, but it meant that you would see on the day spend that you would think was like not good, like the CPAs were out of whack, but then you knew that in a week that they would be in the right place, and therefore it wasn't a total disaster, and it just gave so much more like wriggle room.
It made our conversations with you easier when it wasn't going well. I'll put it that way. And when it was going really well, we could kind of make up for the difference. But on aggregate, yes, absolutely, Henry.
And I think it's just that outsourced mentality, that outsourced team mentality that we try to achieve, where there is that full communication. We're understanding your model as best as we possibly can, so that we're making decisions not just based on what wins for us, but what wins for everyone in the chain. And I know Look After My Bills is pretty much one of the best examples we have of any of the clients that we've worked with. I wanted to pivot a little bit just because we're short on time, and I don't talk to as many people who've actually made exits. I think exits are this. They're a bit mythical. I think everyone in the space thinks about them at some point. Everyone would like to get that big boost of personal income to the point where they could do the things that they wanted to do. I just wanted to ask, like, has your life changed at all since the exit?
I spend more time with my kids. That's for sure. Look, I've been incredibly lucky. I've been able to do a bit of angel investing, which I really enjoy doing, and I kind of see as trying to like give back and help other founders. And I'm incredibly lucky not to have to worry about money that much anymore, and my kids' future in a similar way. And that is, I'm not going to pretend that isn't awesome. Like, that is totally awesome. I'm really enjoying. I haven't done a full-time job since March last year. I've got, I do some. I'm on the board of a couple of organisations and a PLC, and also a government, UK government-related thing. And I do the angel stuff and a tiny bit of consulting, and I'm really enjoying not having a full-time job and having a bit of space. So it's been great. I can't pretend otherwise.
Did you treat yourself to anything in particular when in order to like sort of signal for this big win?
So paid off the mortgages,
That's a big one.
which was great, and actually we've been very lucky to be able to. So we live in London, but we've been able to buy a house in the countryside as well, which has been fantastic, particularly for the kids. So that's the big treat. I'm not big into kind of Lambos or anything, so
No.
I didn't kind of go down that
More
road.
of a Volvo guy, maybe. Something like that.
Mate.
But now you have Downton Abbey out there, so
Station wagon, you got the roof back, you got the wheelie on top.
It's definitely not Downton Abbey,
it's
but
not quite
it's lovely.
Downton Abbey. Okay, good. You don't have
It's not Volvos, it's Land Rovers. No, it's just all of that. So, but as you can see, like, I'm not, I'm still just, in my sweatpants and not really. I don't think I've changed much beyond that. I hope anyway.
We were talking about parenting before this, and your kids don't care that you've made it. They like that you're around more, but they're not going to give you any street cred just because you have an exit.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I mean, if anything, my ones are quite young, 3 and 1, about to turn 4, but she just couldn't give two shits. So yeah, you're completely spot on.
That's the way that goes.
That's the way it should be.
So you mentioned angel investing there. I wanted to ask, what's your philosophy? Like, I know it sounds like you're in a position where you want to dabble, you want to give back, but like, what mindset are you going into the D2C space with right now in terms of as an angel investor? And is it the D2C space, or is it more into the services switching and things like that?
Oh, it's great. It's a great question. So actually, it's a bit of a mix. So I do definitely have a kind of tendency to do more consumer facing stuff. It's less. Okay, there's a little bit of e-commerce there, but it's like I've done a bunch of kind of digital health things. I'm quite into kind of bits and pieces of biotech and stuff. So I'm quite sector agnostic, but I tend to focus on a little bit more on consumer stuff, but I was kind of ed tech and all sorts of things as well. I'm very focused on pre-seed and seed, just kind of like where people at the very early stage. Though I have done some later stuff, but it tends to be like where I think I can actually, I didn't raise tens of millions of dollars for my startup. I took it from 0 people to 60 people, then sold it, and then it went up to 150 people or whatever it was. It's not, it's not like this kind of like massive thing. I think where I can add most value for people is at that pre-seed level. But I think I'm making all the classic angel mistakes, writing checks that are too big to begin with, running, thinking, oh God, acting too slowly, acting too fast, not having a real approach to it. But I'm learning fast and trying to anyway, and really enjoying it. So that's the key thing, I think, hopefully.
Henry, how many, don't have to be detailed, but like about how many companies have you invested in since exiting?
So I've done over 50 now. So I've kind of gone for it. Partly because I read the data about angel investing, and it's basically if you and it kind of applies to VC stuff. It's the classic power law stuff. You need to find 1 or 2 ones that return the fund, as it were. And the more you do, the more likely you are to do that. So I reduced my check size and did way more investments. And I think the stats are that if you kind of hit the kind of 50-60 territory, you've got a decent chance of making some money. Though obviously if I've chosen really shit ones, then it's not going to work.
Have you ever thought about or looked at kind of exchanging like your services, board seats in exchange for equity, or is it always cash?
No, so I, as a general rule, I much prefer to invest. I have done things with some startups where I help them a lot, where if I'll like commit to having a weekly call with them and all that kind of jazz, and I'll be on the advisory board, and then I would get a little extra bit of shares, but I would always have invested. Like my view is that it's not like, I think one of the things that really puts me off is kind of people who are like on an advisory board of a startup who haven't invested and they've been given some shares, and it's just like, you're not really bought into this. And people try to do that for us in my startup, and I was just like, no. If you're not going to invest any money, I'm not going to give you anything for free. It's kind of where I'm at with it. But that's literally only a couple of the companies I work with.
How does deal flow work in the space? Like if you in just a year or less here, you've invested in 50 different companies. Are they coming to you? Are they coming to you through a network that you've joined? How do these deals come in?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky because there's a kind of couple of routes for me. So so I'm part of the Y Combinator network. So particularly like Y Combinator London companies, I'll be kind of aware of and I'll talk to and help out with. And so I've done a few YC things. I mean, obviously anybody can do YC companies, so it's not like unique to me. But that's it. I'm part of a few angel networks in London with kind of UK angels. I'm very lucky that a few kind of more seasoned angels have kind of slightly taken me under their wing and sent me some deals, and then I found deals for them, and we do a lot of sharing of deals. I mean, my main focus, to be honest, has been on friends that I know who are great, who are trying to do startups and helping them, and then they might send me other people that they know, and then it kind of like, it's funny, as I've done more, I've been able to get more, if you see what I mean, in the sense of kind of like sharing deals and seeing more deals. And it's a great, everybody's very kind of like helping each other, like in terms of like angels don't really have to fight to get into deals, because like it's not like being a VC where you're like, I want to lead this round, I must lead this round, and I'll fight you off for it. It's like, if you're an angel, we're writing small checks, we're not leading rounds, like, so it's like, oh, do you want to operate a founder who's exited a business who like understands these few things like digital marketing? Then as a general rule, founders are quite keen to have that. Some some B2B people are like, mate, you're of absolutely no use to us, so see you later, which is also like, which is fair enough. Though I actually think there's a lot of B2C principles that can be applied to B2B marketing that I think a lot of B2B businesses are missing out on. And I've got a bunch of B2B startups as well, so it's not unique.
Give me a couple. What are some of these high level things that can be learned from the B2B space?
I just don't think it's that different, right? Like, I think it's, you're still just selling to people, and obviously it depends what kind of startup where you are, but there will be a certain amount of people who will be your prospective salespeople, and you've got to get to them in any route you can. And the traditional B2B route is kind of like cold emails and sales teams and phone calls. But actually, I think you can create funnels that are very, very targeted for people that keeps it all online and actually is more likely to do it. Like one of the things that one of my startups has been quite successful at is like driving. There's probably like 150,000 people who might buy their service in the UK, and they're kind of good at driving them into making phone calls into their sales center by doing digital marketing, right? So it's not rocket science. Like, this is all obvious, and I think the key point with it all is that you just should be, anybody's trying to grow anything, whether it's B2B, whatever it is, needs to be open to testing every single possible route to growth, because you don't know what will work until you test it, and that's the key, really.
And the vision of finding a silver bullet that you can just hammer on for all times is not that realistic. Even though you guys were fully hammered onto Facebook for spending as much as you were spending, you were constantly having to find new angles and new approaches and refreshing things. So it really is, it's a bit of a grind. There's no two ways about that.
Definitely. I mean, I think my other bit of advice is if you find a channel that works for you, just scale almost like be okay with binning off the other channels for now, and just scale the living daylights out of it until it breaks, because you often only get that opportunity once, and there's like a kind of like time period of it, and then you'll realize at what level you can then have to put it back a bit. But if you've got a chance, go for it. But we did that, but then we were also like, okay, well, we've got to do YouTube, we've got to try and do, one of the things Pilothouse did brilliantly for us, which I assumed was never going to work, was Snap. You guys got Snap to work for us, which was, an electricity switching service on Snap. I mean, is kind of like ridiculous. But you've just got to try. We tried Nextdoor. We tried Native. Every single channel you could think of, we gave it a try. But it was Facebook that really worked for us, and we hammered it as hard as we could.
Lovely. Kyle, what would you say, you consider Henry one of your closest business contacts here. What would you say you've learned, taken away from the relationship?
Oh, so much. I think just seriously, so much. He's a very talented person and very humble, as you can tell. But
He's blushing.
yeah, no, it's for real. I've since this relationship started, I've kind of gravitated. I've looked at him for mentorship, been able to ask him lots of questions. He supported our business through referrals. But I think like in the vein of like this DTC growth thing and this conversation of exiting, really what I'm trying to collaborate with them now on is this idea of what does Pilothouse mean as an investment party and or a real partner, because we don't like the word agency, negative connotation industry wide, whatever. We look at ourselves as partners, and then from that word, how deep can we actually go, because we've always said deep integration partner is kind of what we do, and it's not just we're running ads or making creative for you. It's like we're in your balance sheet, really, if we can get that alignment right. And so what does that mean? The conversations we're having now really are, how do we position Pilothouse in a way where we are a true growth partner and a part of that business for businesses that make sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next year kind of thinking for us. Obviously, there's a lot to figure out there, and it's idea at this point. But like investment companies are referring us to clients because the clients don't have the talent, because there's just not enough of it, and we're just trying to bridge that. Why are we this intermediary? We should be the ones that are participating on both sides of that.
I love it.
I think there's lots of different, and what's exciting about it is I think there's lots of different ways of approaching all of that in terms of like, what does that kind of look like? And I think in particular I think about my portfolio companies that I'm very lucky to have, and they're at that stage where it's all very young for them, but if they can really motor, then it can get big very quickly. And it's like, well, they might not be able to, they have huge amounts of cash at the moment, but at points that can make sense for everybody. It's just a question of how does that work? So everybody's happy, both sides are happy, because that's the key with it, really.
Nice.
Exactly.
And Kyle, you guys have already invested too, right? Like you invested in me and in D2C. And I know as a talent-based business, like that's a big feature for Pilothouse as well. Not only finding ways to potentially do equity deals with growth partners and things like that, but also incentivizing the staff to build kind of within the Pilothouse umbrella, which I'm a pretty good example of.
La Familia. Yeah. We very much look for and train and partner with entrepreneurs. Dave's a good example too. That was our first one, Dave, who founded Pilothouse. He was an employee of Helmkin. So we're startup people. Like, we're just addicted to it. And so within Pilothouse, yes, certainly. Eric, you're a fantastic story. Congratulations on your equity release, by the way. Hit all of his goals in the first year. But yeah, I think my mindset needs to shift away from us having to be the ones that are doing the whole business from the ground up. And I think that's kind of what we're working on operationally.
Very cool. Well, I think we should continue this conversation at a later date, Henry. I think you can become a regular person on the podcast. I have to introduce you to Paul Singh. Do you know Paul Singh from Bump Health, as well as he's a guy that is angel investor, and he's, I think, with over 1,000 businesses now. He's one of my favorite podcast guests I've ever had, and I think you guys would just absolutely hit it off. So I'll fire off an intro email there, because I think you'd both get a lot out of it. Cheers. Thanks again, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.